The Decider, Chapter 1. I guess I'll start at the beginning. That is kind of impossible when you consider one very profound question. Where is the beginning of infinity? We all know there isn't one, so I'll begin at the point that's pertinent to my story. Well, even that isn't as exact of a science as it may seem, but I'll give my best effort. I can only hope that I succeed without losing you. There is a book that makes a claim of what happened in the beginning. According to that book, God, as this entity is commonly labeled, said, "Let there be light." I wonder if I'm the only one that notices the many discrepancies in this claim. Pointing out all of them would lead to endless debates, so I'll stick to only those which matter to me. God actually said absolutely nothing. That would mean that God spoke into nothing and was speaking to no one. Common sense exposes the incredibility of that logic. Look, I'm not one for intellectual, philosophical, or theological debates. All I can do is tell it as it is and go from there. Creation, also known as the beginning, arose from a decision. That's the undeniable truth of the matter. Actually, there is no greater truth in existence than this. All things start at the point when a decision is made. A decision. That is the beginning of anything. Something decides upon something, then moves to act, and something happens. In the beginning, that something was creation. So no, God didn't say, "Let there be light." A more accurate statement would be that the omnipotent source of infinity decided to define the finite in order to perceive and allow for the perception of the only infinite power in existence. Love. Does that make any sense? If not, I'll attempt to clarify. Everything needs something to love. To love is to exist, and the source of infinity had to define its existence through the universal expression of love, hence the creation of our existence. That was the first of us. Though I say us, I don't mean that in a literal sense. I mean that in order to define a technicality, because the creator of all things is, technically, a decider. That's still a slight misrepresentation, so let me clarify. God decided to create, through the power of love, everything else. That is what makes God a decider. But that is like placing the sun and planets in the same category simply because they're both celestial objects. No planet will ever be comparable to the sun, just the terminology is similar. If God is like the sun, then we're just a bunch of planets that should be thankful to said sun for our existence. God decided, through the infinite power of love, that something else deserved to exist in order to love and be loved. If not for that original decision, I'm not even going to go there. It happened the way that it happened. Thank God. That is the beginning. God, the grand decider, decided to create existence, and here we are. That is why I'm here, now, telling you my story. But this story is about much more than me. In the penning of this story, I came to the startling realization that this story is about so much more than simply me. This is a story about creation, existence, you, me, and most importantly, love. Yes, this is not just a simple love story. This is a story about love. I'm pretty sure that many are wondering who I am. The more important question that should be asked is what I am. I am Joe. What am I? I definitely ain't your average Joe, even though I very much look the part. I am a decider. Don't go getting green-eyed with envy over my job title either. I didn't ask for this job. There are significant benefits, but the pay absolutely sucks considering that there is none. I digress. Let me start with my beginning. I was born in... I have lived far too long to have not yet figured out that certain pieces of information are superfluous. When I was born is one of those pieces of information. Besides, I couldn't tell you accurately anyway because the calendar used on a global scale now is wholly different from the one in place when I was born, and the guy who is credited with the current method for counting time had not yet been born. Now you're wondering how old I am. That piece of information is not superfluous. I don't have an exact answer, so I'll give you an example. About 50 years ago, give or take a decade, I heard one kid tell his friend a joke that I found to be unusually offensive. Yo mama's so old, this bratty little, crusty-lipped, snotty-nosed urchin said that she owes Jesus a quarter. They both laughed while I wanted to slap hellfire out of both of them. Why? Maybe because I'm at least that old. Much older, actually. It still strikes me as somewhat comical that everyone nowadays refers to him as Jesus. His name is actually Joshua, or Josh as I like to call him. I've met him, and I'd like to think we're good friends. Josh, Jesus, is actually a decider. That is an understatement. Josh, Jesus, would be, if there was a corporation for this type of job, considered like a CEO, whereas I would be nothing more than a low-level employee who has been with the company way too long to have not received a promotion. Good old Josh. Sorry, I mean Jesus if you can't tell by now. Just thinking about that guy brings a huge smile to my face. He is the man. I know what you're probably thinking. This is all allegorical fiction, crazy talk, outlandish fallacy. It's okay for you to think that. Feel free to believe whatever makes your life livable. I'll stick to my knowledge, you can stick to your beliefs, and we can proceed from there. None of that changes the fact that Jesus will be referred to as such from now on simply because I am still human and therefore a creature of habit who has habitually referred to Jesus as Josh. Was, or should I say, is considering the fact that he is still very much alive, one of, if not, the highest ranking decider to hold the position. Josh is certainly the highest ranking decider that I have ever met. He decides the fate of worlds, solar systems, and even entire galaxies. I hear that he will soon hold the ultimate decision over the fate of existence as we know it. He has made decisions while on Earth that, to this very day, still have booming repercussions to all life on the planet. I have had the question asked, why give one man that much power? Simple, stupid, because they can actually handle it. That's why. That is what made Josh one of a kind. There is no possible way that I, nor anyone else that I have ever met, with the exception of one child, could hope to handle the level of expectation and responsibility that accompanies such power. Speaking for myself, I would have succumbed to the corrupting influence like an anvil falling on an ant, and that was obvious from the moment I became a decider. Josh did such a superlative job with Earth that he was granted a promotion. I don't expect anyone to fully understand all of this yet, and I would be a fool to think it. To truly understand all of what I've just explained, then there needs to be a foundation or at least a cursory knowledge of the job duties inherent with the position of decider. There are too many to simply list, but as I tell this story, the most impactful ones will be revealed, and it is my hope that by the conclusion of this story, you will understand exactly what is required of a decider. On the surface, being a decider would seem like the dream job for anyone. Everyone should be clamoring for any opening for such a lofty position. There's one saying that fits this situation perfectly. Looks can be deceiving. First, there is no application to fill out, no office to visit, and no signs that read, "Now hiring for deciders." There is no phone number, no website, nothing to allow anyone the opportunity to express interest in becoming a decider. I probably shouldn't be telling you that such a position even exists. What does happen, as best I can tell, is that a committee notifies a local decider of their decision on who will become a decider and sends that person to cross their path. The instant that that decider encounters the person ordained to become a decider, that recruit is then brought before the committee, whether willingly or not. Once in the presence of that committee, life as you know it is officially over. The decision has already been made without your involvement that you shall be a decider. That committee is now to be the bearer of the bad news, amongst other sadistic activities that I can only describe as iniquitous, that what has been rewarded you is the most blessed of responsibilities, as they like to phrase it. If you ask me, these guys are sadists that derive some neurotic form of pleasure in informing you that you are now thoroughly screwed From then on, with no hope of a termination date, a paycheck, a vacation, or even a lunch break. I sugarcoat nothing. If you ask me, being a decider sucks big, meaty, sweaty Tyrannosaurus Rex balls. Would I do it all over again if given the option? There isn't a moment's hesitation in my answer. Yes, I definitely would. Never mind that the option to decline is non-existent. Besides, that decision had already been made for me.